Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the ICTY Weekly Press Briefing. My name is Magdalena Spalinska, spokesperson to Registrar Chambers, and with me is also Fred Swinen, special advisor to the prosecutor here. Last Friday, the ICTY registrar issued a decision in which he found that Ratko Mladic is able to remunerate counsel in part, and that he is to contribute 60,992 euros to the cost of his defense. The rest of the expenses will be borne by the tribunal. Subsequently, the registrar assigned Branko Lukic and Miodrag Stojanovic as permanent counsel and co-counsel of the accused. The decision is available online. Last Thursday, the appeals chamber declared the appellate proceedings against Dragoljub Ojdanic closed after accepting Ojdanic's withdrawal of his appeal against the trial chamber judgment and that of the prosecution insofar as it concerns Ojdanic. The appeals chamber declared as final Ojdanic's 15-year sentence for aiding and abetting the deportation and forcible transfer of the ethnic Albanian population in Kosovo in 1999. Ojdanic is to remain in the custody of the tribunal pending his transfer to the state in which he will serve his sentence. This decision will be rendered by the President in due course. As a consequence of the completion of the proceedings against Ojdanic, the appeal hearing in the Shajnovic and others case is now scheduled to be held from Monday 11th of March to Friday the 15th of March 2013. The hearings that were initially scheduled for 18th and 19th of March have been cancelled. Turning now to the activities in the courtrooms, last Thursday, the closing arguments in the case of Jovica Stanisic and Franko Simatovic concluded. The defense asked for both to be acquitted of all charges, whilst the prosecution asked for life imprisonment for both accused. The date of the judgment will be announced in due course. In the case of Radovan Karadzic, the trial chamber is currently hearing the testimony of Srđan Trivkovic, who is the 68th witness to testify on behalf of the defense. Trivkovic met the accused during the war as a Balkan affairs analyst and journalist. In the case of Goran Hadžić, expert witness Christian Nielsen is currently testifying about the historical and political developments in the former Yugoslavia. He is also testifying about the Serb police structures in Croatia from 1990 to 1993. So far, 29 witnesses have been called by the prosecution. In the case of Ratko Mladic, witness Mirza Sablica is currently testifying about a number of shelling and sniping incidents in Sarajevo during the time when he was working as a forensic ballistic analyst in the local police. He is the 69th witness to be called by the prosecution. And finally, I would like to highlight the second round of high school and university presentations by the tribunal's outreach program. The first presentation was held in a high school in Sarajevo yesterday afternoon and will be followed by another one in Zenica tomorrow. High school presentations will continue to be held in Bosnia and Herzegovina and across the former Yugoslavia throughout the school year. A regional series of university presentations is planned to begin in March. The first round of presentations was held during the 2011 and 12 school year and engaged over 3,500 students from high schools and universities across Bosnia, Serbia, Croatia, Kosovo, Montenegro, and the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. That concludes my briefing. Fred?
I have nothing, thanks.
I'm opening for the questions from the journalists.
When does Ojdanovic serve 2/3 of his sentence?
Sorry?
Do you know when Ojdanovic will have served 2/3 of his sentence? When he'll be...
This yet has to be confirmed, and talking about early release. Of course, if he would like to be released early, he would have to apply for it first, and then it will be looked at and concluded when the 2/3 are going to be finished. If there are no yeah.
We haven't seen Vojislav Šešelj in the courtroom since last summer, if I'm not wrong. So according to the tribunal rules, he should be brought before the judge every 4 months for status conference. Do you know why this didn't happen?
Well, we haven't had any information when the next status conference will be held. But as you know, the evidentiary phase is now finished, and as soon as we get any information about a conference, we'll let you know.
But the status conference has nothing to do with the evidentiary phase of the case. It has to do with possible complaints about the health of the accused or conditions of detention, and the accused is entitled to have a status conference every 4 months.
Yes, as soon as we get any information about a conference, we'll let you know, of course.
But we didn't ask when the conference will be held, but why it's not.
I have no information at this point about the reasons.
I've seen the information about the achievements of legacy conferences in Sarajevo and Zagreb.
Mm-hmm.
As I remember, it should have been held also a legacy conference in Belgrade,
Yeah.
which was postponed.
Yeah.
And what happened with that?
We are still hoping that we'll be able to hold a legacy conference, a meeting of that kind in Belgrade. You're right. The conference that was planned was cancelled last year because of security reasons, and the well-known statements of the Serbian government of putting the cooperation with the tribunal on the technical level, which meant, of course, yes, which of course meant lack of support for outreach activities, and the conference obviously is an outreach activity. However, we are still thinking and optimistic that a conference of this kind will go ahead in Serbia. We think it's very important. And also very important after the judgments and the reaction both of the politicians and the public in Serbia to sit down and talk about these issues. So again, we are hoping we'll be able to go ahead with Serbia.
Are there any activities going on that?
At the moment, the level of outreach, you mean outreach activities in general or in preparation?
Concerning the legacy conference, the possible legacy conference?
We are looking at possibilities. We are looking to, we are working and talking to the partners on the ground to see if such a conference would be possible, in what format. So this kind of work and this kind of conversation is really ongoing.
But then it's still if there.
It is if, but we are very optimistic, I can say it in that way. I don't think it would be good that we completely abandon any outreach activities in Serbia. I don't think it would be good for the public. I think the public does want to know what the tribunal is doing and have a really serious discussion about the legacy. So yes, we are still working. We are still confident that something will happen.
And to go back to Rados's question, is there a possibility for us to find out and to get any info of the Šešelj's case concerning the status conference?
The status conference. I promise I will find out and will share this information with the journalists who are interested.
Can you just
Yeah.
continue on Minos Legacy Conference? On the website you issued a statement about legacy conferences achievements in Sarajevo and Zagreb, and there is no more mentioning anywhere of Belgrade. There is no mention that you are trying, working. that there is any prospect of Belgrade? Is it
We are trying, we are leading and conducting conversation and talks with our partners, but we of course cannot state that a conference or a meeting is going to happen until we have a specific confirmation that it is going to happen.
Yeah, but I remember earlier it was always talks how 3 conferences were planned, and now when you look back at that statement, there is no mention that there was ever a plan to be in Belgrade. If somebody didn't know that there was plan for Belgrade, from your website they cannot see that there was ever planned to be anything in Belgrade. So that's what I mean, there are no mentioning that there were ever plans of Belgrade.
I think we were mentioning from the very beginning that we want to have 3 conferences,
Yeah.
and I'm sure that there is still something on the website that says that from the initial point. But 2 happened, and obviously we can only share the materials from the 2 conferences that happened.
And another question about Florence Hartmann case. Do you know what happened with it? Because we haven't heard anything about it since she's been convicted to 7 days in prison, and France refused to hand her over.
There have been no further developments in this case ever since then.
Has the
So
registry,
yeah.
sorry, has the registry or the office of the president made any legal analysis of France's position, namely, which is to state that France cooperates on war crimes cases only and not on contempt cases?
Not that I know of.
And the repercussions on other countries' position in that sense, because all the countries of former Yugoslavia were immediately obliged to serve any tribunal's arrest warrant, to execute any tribunal's arrest warrant, even when the witnesses were in question. I can remember the Berko Zečević, Sarajevo professor, was arrested and handed over to the tribunal in order to testify before Karadzic, in Karadzic case. Also, he's been only indicted for contempt, and here we have a final judgment and conviction, and nothing happens.
There has not been any statements of this kind from the chambers or the registry. Are there any more questions? If not, thank you very much. I'll conclude the briefing.